Hey everyone, welcome to Logan's Mosh Pit. Glad to have you here. Do me a favor and please subscribe if you haven't already. It's time for another installment of Rock and Read. This week we will be reading Chapter 4 of the fascinating fact machine, The Great Book of Rock Trivia. Chapter 4 is called The Hits. Here we go. How did the guitarist come up with that epic riff, and what does Crimson and Clover mean? Was Peggy Sue Buddy Holly's girlfriend? And what on earth is Smells Like Teen Spirit about? All songs have stories behind them, and some are tragic, bizarre, or absolutely hilarious. Find out some of the most interesting stories here. Okay, let's see which sensational songs have shaped our society. Peggy Sue. In 1957, Buddy Holly wrote a song for his baby niece, Cindy Lou. However, the Crickets drummer, Jerry Allison, had recently broken up with his girlfriend, Peggy Sue. Allison wanted to get back together with Peggy Sue, and he convinced Buddy Holly to name the song after her. It worked, and the couple reunited and later married. They divorced in 1967. Fast forward to 2008. Peggy Sue Gerron published her memoir, Whatever Happened to Peggy Sue, in which she claims that the song was always about her, and that the late singer had proposed that they should divorce their respective spouses and he would take care of her. The book gave Buddy Holly's widow, who is not well liked by some of Holly's family and fans, a world of vexation and provided a feast for the gossip mills, but the author's claims do not appear to be based on fact. I guess we'll never know. Good Vibrations. Ranking 6 on Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Songs of All Time, between Respect by Aretha Franklin and Johnny B. Good by Chuck Berry, Good Vibrations is an incredibly complex rock song that was years ahead of its time. Brian Wilson, the musical genius and brains behind the Beach Boys, called the song a pocket symphony. What's that unusual high-pitched instrument playing in the hook and at the end? It's an electro-theremin, or simply the box. Named after its Soviet inventor, the traditional theremin is an electrical instrument with metal antennas, which you play by moving your hands around the antennas. It's extremely difficult. Inventor and trombonist Paul Tanner had recently developed a similar sounding instrument without antennas, which was easier to manage, and he played it for the recording. Since they couldn't drag Paul Tanner along on tour and the song was often requested, they had to modify a synthesizer to get a similar sound for concerts. The fast rhythm in the background is made by a cello, which is not normally thought of as a rhythm instrument. Brian Wilson wanted sessions keyboardist Don Randy to play a drawn-out tone by holding down the bass pedal of the organ. Randy finally got the sound Wilson wanted when he took a pillow and fell asleep with his head on the pedal. While the lyrics are about a connection with a flower power hippie girl, the phrase Good Vibrations was inspired by the Wilsons' brother's mom, Audrey. When Brian was 14, she told him that dogs can sense the vibrations of different humans, and that's why they bark at certain people and not others. Maybe that's true. Yellow Submarine. Barbiturates, right? At least, that's what your grumpy uncle told you. Actually, no. The nickname for the drugs came shortly after the song, like Puff the Magic Dragon by Peter, Paul, and Mary. It's a simple story for children. Paul envisioned a yellow submarine as a children's toy and made up a story about an old sailor talking about his voyages and his yellow submarine. Paul kept the melody simple since he was writing it for Ringo. The drummer's vocal range was a bit narrower than that of the others, and he sang better in non-serious songs. They had a lot of fun in the studio with the sound effects. John used a straw to blow bubbles into a bucket of water, and an employee swirled chains around in a full bathtub. A roadie walked around the studio playing a big bass drum as a bunch of the band's friends, including Mary Ann Faithfull, Mick Jagger, Patty Boyd Harrison, and Brian Jones, sang with them for the chorus. Scottish singer Donovan helped Paul with the line, Sky of Blue, Sea of Green. Paul returned the favor by playing bass on Donovan's song Mellow Yellow and joining in the cheering at the end. Like Yellow Submarine, Mellow Yellow was thought to be about drugs, but it wasn't. It was, however, partially about a lady's yellow vibrator on the market that looked like a banana. A Day in the Life. Of course, the Beatles had lots of interesting songs. This song begins with the words, "I read the news today," and it really was about several items in the news at that time. The first was the death of Tara Brown, a friend of the band and the heir to the genus Fortune. The details of his death in the song are fictional. The 4,000 holes refers to potholes, and the "turn you on" line has a double meaning. The instrumental components are complex, and they were not easy to play. The members of a 41-piece orchestra in party hats were instructed to play their instruments louder and louder into a glissando, each as individuals without listening to the rest of the orchestra. This was not what they were used to. To play the final chord assisted Mal Evans, John and Ringo each sat at a piano. They had to strike E major at the exact same time, and 9 takes were required to get it right. Not all of it was hard, though. The alarm clock was easy enough, though it was intended as a joke and not intended to be in there. Johnny Be Good. Rock songs about rock stars, such as Turn the Page by Bob Seger and Shooting Star by Bad Company, are staples of the rock canon, but Chuck Berry wrote the first one. Johnny Be Good is autobiographical, but loosely, so Berry, unlike Johnny, was well educated and came from St. Louis, not New Orleans. The Country Boy line was originally Colored Boy, but Berry knew that line wouldn't be played on white radio stations. The name was a combination of the street he grew up on, Good, and piano player Johnny Johnson, who collaborated with Berry as well as with Keith Richards and Eric Clapton. Incidentally, Johnson released a solo album in 1991 called Johnny Be Bad. Many earlier country and blues musicians did not sing their words clearly, but Berry did so the listeners could understand his carefully crafted story. It worked because the song was launched into space in 1977 aboard Voyager 1. It was part of a compilation of the best of American culture. As Tears Go By. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards wrote As Tears Go By when the Rolling Stones manager locked them in the kitchen. Out of all the rooms to be locked in, I would choose the kitchen every time, and forbade them to come out until they had written a song that wasn't about sex. They wrote As Tears Go By, and because the Stones didn't do ballads at the time, gave the song to Marianne Faithfull, and she made it a hit. The Stones also recorded it the following year with only strings, voice, and acoustic guitar. If you've ever scratched your head and wondered what it means for tears to go by, you're not alone. In fact, the original title was As Time Goes By, but that was also a song from Casablanca, so they changed it. The theme of the song, nostalgia, that one's childhood is over, seemed a rather odd one for 17-year-old Faithfull and 22-year-old Jagger to sing. Faithfull re-recorded the song in 1987 and was able to capture the tone of the lyrics much better. Crimson and Clover. There are a lot of opinions out there about this one by Tommy James and the Shondells, usually involving sex or drugs. If that's what you're expecting, Tommy James' account may be a bit of a letdown. 2 words that he liked just came to him as he was getting out of bed one morning, and they sounded nice together. James then filled in the rest of the song with the band's drummer, Pete Lucia. It was the first song they wrote after their outside writer quit, and it remained on the Billboard Hot 100 chart for 16 weeks. Lucia's account differs slightly. He claims the idea came to him while he was watching a football game in which one team was wearing red jerseys and the other green. The song has been covered by many other artists, most successfully by Joan Jett in 1982. Prince also did a cover that combined this song with Wild Thing, Layla. Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs was the only studio album by Derek and the Dominoes led by Eric Clapton. At least 3 of the love songs on the album were about model Patty Boyd, with whom Clapton had fallen in love and who happened to be George Harrison's wife at the time. Years later, Boyd would divorce Harrison and marry Clapton with Harrison's blessing. Clapton took the name of the song from a story of unrequited love that originated in Arabia and was expanded upon by Persian poets, particularly Nizami. In some versions of the story, Layla is a princess, and in others she is a slave, as is Majin. In every version of the story, Majin is not allowed to marry Layla, and his love drives him mad, and he composes copious amounts of poetry. Layla lasts over 7 minutes, which was too long for a single at that time. The end features a long piano solo that doesn't sound like it belongs with the song. That's because it wasn't written for this song. Drummer Jim Gordon added it, but he had taken it from his former girlfriend Rita Coolidge. Also near the end is an electric guitar flourish that sounds like a bird. An illustrated book about birds! This was intended by Duane Allman as a tribute to Charlie Bird Parker. A French artist, Francine de Schonberg, painted the cover art, which features a blonde woman who resembles Patty Boyd. The songs on Layla and other assorted love songs aren't the only ones Eric Clapton wrote for Boyd. Wonderful Tonight was written during their marriage on an evening she took a long time to get ready, and he wrote Old Love at the end of their relationship. Sympathy for the Devil. Marianne Faithfull gave Mick Jagger a book called The Master and Margarita by Soviet/Russian author Mikhail Bulgakov, in which the devil and his cronies spend half a week playing pranks with quite serious consequences on the citizens of 1930s Moscow. The book is considered one of the best Soviet satires. Along with Baudelaire, it was the inspiration for the Rolling Stones' 1968 song Sympathy for the Devil. As you can imagine, or remember, this song generated an incredible amount of controversy. Despite the band's insistence that the song illustrates man's dark side and does not celebrate Satanism, the historical atrocities in the song were done by humans after all. There was also a rumor that the stabbing at the Altamont Festival took place during this song, but the band was actually playing Under My Thumb at the time. Still, the Stones didn't perform Sympathy for the Devil in concert for 7 years. The song was written as a folk tune with acoustic instruments and was reinvented in the studio several times until the band decided on a samba rhythm. You can hear a cowbell and congas in the song, like a Rolling Stone. No, this is not about the rock group or the magazine. Bob Dylan took it from the proverb, a rolling stone gathers no moss. It was 1965, and Dylan was tired and bored of the music he'd been playing on tour. He wrote a short story in loose verse about a debutante who fell from high society and became an outcast, and from there, like a rolling stone, was born. No one knows for sure if the song is about a specific woman, but a likely candidate is Eddie Sedgwick, a rich girl who ran away from home, became involved with Andy Warhol's factory crowd, received her 15 minutes of fame. This expression was coined by Warhol and was discarded. Warhol's crowd believed that the diplomat on the chrome horse referred to him. The idea is further strengthened by the fact that Dylan and Sedgwick had become romantically involved, but it is still just a theory. The song is also remarkable for its length, at just over 6 minutes. At that time, radio stations rarely played anything longer than 3 minutes, but listeners demanded to hear Dylan's full version. Dylan's vocal style also inspired a generation of musicians, including Jimi Hendrix and Sam Cooke, by proving that you don't need a conventional voice to be a rock star. Hendrix covered this song as well as All Along the Watchtower, Smoke on the Water. Everyone knows the guitar riff of this rock anthem by Deep Purple, but few know the lyrics behind the chorus. If you listen to the lyrics, however, you'll learn the whole story behind this song, and it's a true one. The fire at a Frank Zappa concert started by a stupid with a flare gun that burned the Montreux casino to the ground. Deep Purple was in town to record at the casino and was staying at the hotel across the lake from where they saw the fire and immediately wrote about it. Funky Claude refers to Claude Nobbs, the organizer of the Monterey Jazz Festival and the Frank Zappa concert. The fact that there were no serious injuries was partially because Nobbs really did carry teens out of the building. Shortly after the fire, the band played the song for Nobbs, but said they did not plan to include it on their album. He convinced them that it would be a huge hit. Baba O'Reilly. No, this song by The Who is not called Teenage Wasteland. Pete Townsend named the song after two people he admired, Indian spiritual guru Meher Baba and Terry Riley, a minimalistic composer. Townsend imagined a song that would result from entering Meher Baba's life into a synthesizer, but the song ended up reflecting more of Terry Riley's ideas. The Who was planning a project called Lifehouse, a rock opera like Tommy. This song was supposed to be sung by a Scottish farmer who was moving to London with his family. The Teenage Wasteland refers to Woodstock. The violin at the end was drummer Keith Moon's idea, but Roger Daltrey plays that part on harmonica in concerts. American Pie. Most people know that Don McLean's 1971 hit is about the deaths of Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper. McLean also saw the event as a turning point from the relatively innocent 50s to the more volatile 60s. The future singer was a 13-year-old paperboy at the time of the plane crash. He dedicated the album to Buddy Holly, hoping to renew interest in Holly's life and music. McLean declined to explain the meaning of the song until 2015, when the original manuscript was auctioned. He then confirmed that the king was Elvis and the jester was Bob Dylan. Helter Skelter is a reference to the Charles Manson murders, and the fifth verse describes the Altamont Free concert during which a teenager was stabbed to death by a group of Hell's Angels. If you listen closely, you may notice that the song begins in mono and switches to stereo to illustrate the changes in musical style with the times. Weird Al created a Star Wars-themed parody to the song called The Saga Begins. Don McLean and his children liked the parody and claim that Weird Al's lyrics often come to mind when he, McLean, performs American Pie. George Lucas loved the song too. Godzilla. Thanks to the lyrical talent behind Blue Oyster Cult, many of their songs have interesting stories behind them, whether from sci-fi or fantasy, or as a reference to popular or motorcycle culture. Godzilla was one of their biggest hits, along with Don't Fear the Reaper and Burnin' for You, and it is pretty much a satire of the genre they were masters of. Buck Dharma played a guitar riff, and being a fan of monster movies, thought of Godzilla. A huge moving Godzilla monster with flashing red eyes and smoke coming out of its mouth used to share the stage with them for live performances of the song. Vocalist and stun guitarist Eric Bloom spoke some Japanese in the second half of the song. When the movie Godzilla was remade in 1998, the song was passed over in favor of one by P. Diddy. Bloom and Dharma recorded a parody of their own song calling it Nozilla, with lyrics mocking the director's decision. Later, when the guitarist became the leader of the Buck Dharma band, he heard about a kid who was using Godzilla to help him fight an inoperable brain tumor. The kid was successfully treated in an experimental process. The band went to Atlanta, where the boy was, and performed a benefit concert to cover his medical bills. Hotel California. At some point, someone's probably told you this song by the Eagles is about a mental institution or church of Satan. Actually, it's about the excesses in the rock and roll lifestyle in LA. As seen in the lives and deaths of so many stars, these excesses are hard to avoid if you're rich and famous. In contrast with the dark thematic material, the original working title was Mexican Reggae. The song includes a playful reference to the group Steely Dan in the Steely Knives line. The word colitas refers to marijuana. Guitarist Don Feldner came up with the melody while resting at a beach house in Malibu, and Don Henley and Glenn Frey wrote the lyrics. Frey imagined the desert scene and a traveler who stops and finds a bunch of strange characters, like an episode of The Twilight Zone. Silver Springs. Most people know that Rumors chronicles the complicated relationship between the members of Fleetwood Mac, but what about the song that didn't make it onto the album? Silver Springs, like most of the songs on Rumors, is a breakup song. Stevie Nicks wrote it at the end of her relationship with Lindsey Buckingham to describe what could have been. As for the title, Stevie Nicks noticed the road sign when they were driving through Silver Spring, Maryland, and thought it sounded like a romantic name for a beautiful place. Nicks badly wanted Silver Springs on Rumors, especially since Buckingham's breakup song to her, Go Your Own Way, was particularly scathing. The song accuses her of shacking up, which was untrue, and Nicks said she wanted to kill him every time they performed that song. Mick Fleetwood and the others took Silver Springs off the album for various reasons, including its length and the fact that there were enough slow songs. The song finally appeared on The Chain in 1992, a box set, and on their greatest hits album, Born in the USA. Sounds patriotic, right? Not if you listen beyond the chorus, which then President Ronald Reagan obviously failed to do, as he used Born in the USA as his campaign song and praised Bruce Springsteen for promoting the American dream. Reagan's opponent, Walter Mondale, mentioned him too. The lyrics tell the story of a Vietnam veteran who was treated badly back in the States. In the cover art for the album of the same name, Annie Leibovitz took a lot of photos, and in the end Springsteen thought the picture of his denim-clad rear end looked better than the ones of his face. Nothing symbolic or anything. While Springsteen does not allow his music to be used in advertisements, he allowed Sesame Street to do a parody called Barn in the USA. The The drum solo near the end of the recording was improvised by E Street Band drummer Max Weinberg. The song was originally meant to be acoustic. Springsteen sometimes performed it that way, recognizing that the verses' lyrics were hard to understand in the recorded version. Winds of Change. The video for Scorpions' Winds of Change shows the fall of the Berlin Wall, but the song itself was inspired by earlier events. In 1988, the group became the first Western rock band to perform in the Soviet Union. They returned the next year for the Moscow Music Peace Festival and were pleasantly surprised by the changes they saw, a result of Gorbachev's policy of glasnost. As Germans, Scorpions had a desire to show their Soviet audience that Germans could bring love and rock and roll instead of tanks and war. Later, they started singing a version of the song in Russian and also in Spanish. The song includes references to places in Moscow. The Moskva is a river, and Gorky Park is a 300-acre public park in the center of Moscow, named after author Maxim Gorky. The intro to Wind of Change was supposed to be played on guitar, but singer Klaus Meine decided to whistle it instead. The record company wanted to cut the whistling out, but the band stuck to their guns, and the whistling stayed in. Smells Like Teen Spirit. The title does, in fact, refer to the popular brand of deodorant. A friend of Nirvana singer Kurt Cobain wrote on the wall when he was sleeping, "Kurt smells like Teen Spirit." Evidently, Cobain was unfamiliar with the product name and thought it sounded like a good song title. Many fans have spent hours trying to read between the lines and find the meaning of the song. Kurt Cobain gave several different explanations, including a concession that it was made up of contradictory ideas, and making fun of the thought of having a revolution. Drummer Dave Grohl said Cobain wrote the lyrics 5 minutes before singing them, that does sound like him, and believes they are largely meaningless. Nirvana got tired of performing this song, and it was often requested. Since the riff was very similar to Boston's More Than a Feeling, the band sometimes started off with Smells Like Teen Spirit, and then played a bad cover of More Than a Feeling. For a show in Argentina, the band brought a relatively unknown all-female group called Calamity Jane to open for them. The audience booed Calamity Jane, and pelted them with projectiles, which angered Nirvana. They decided to play the show but do a horrible job as revenge. They played the riff from Smells Like Teen Spirit and then launched into an unknown song. Well, that's the end of Chapter 4. Let me know what you guys thought of Chapter 4 in the comments. That does it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate the support. I'll see you next time. Until then, rock on.